Okay, Peseda. So we're up to Hilchas Krishma Siman Ayin Daled Halacha Gimel. So we're going through the halachas of Krishma, and when you can say and how you can say in a situation that you're in a state of undress and how that works. So the Mechaber says in Sif Gimel, Im ha'adam mechabek gufa b'zroisov dainin lei ka'afsaka. Imagine a person is in a swimming pool, or is in a river, or is in a mikva, and he wants to say Krishma. So how does he operate? Because he's not wearing any clothes. So the Gemara says, the Mechaber is saying that if a mechabek begufa, in other words, he goes like this, he takes his arms and he sort of holds himself, where he presses his arms against his chest. So that's considered the hefsek of liboy roes ha'erva. So the Mishnah Berurah explains. Sivkot Yudalad, Ka'afsaka Pirush im oimed b'mayim slulin. A man is standing in clear water, v'liboy gam b'kein toich hamayim, and his lave, his heart, his chest, is also under the water. V'tzorich lahafsik bein liboy le'ervosoi. Because remember, we've said there are two issues here. There's just some ayin roes ha'erva. You can't see a part of the private parts which are hidden. That can't be seen when you're saying Kriya Shema. And also there's an issue of liboy roes ha'erva. Your chest, your lave can't see the erva. So if you're in the water and your chest is underneath the water level, so then you haven't got the barrier of the water, and the lave and the erva are in the same sort of rishus, the same domain, and you've got a problem. So what do? It's enough to take your arms and sort of hold them against your chest. Even though we said last time that a cover, if I were to go like that and put my hand over my head to make a bracha, if I wasn't wearing a couple, that wouldn't work. So how does this work? This is better than just putting my hand over my head. This is better. Why? And the reason is because it's not normal for a person to sort of hold his arms close to his chest and to embrace themselves in that way. And he's doing it. That's considered therefore as a hefsek. It's an unusual way of doing it, even though it's all one body. And we make as opposed to others who are machmir. Now, if he's wearing a shirt without any trousers, imagine he's wearing like a long t-shirt or like one of these old-fashioned old night shirts, right? Even he's wearing that without any michnasayim, without anything underneath. And he presses this t-shirt, this shirt against his heart, or just underneath his heart, that would also be okay. So if a person's wearing that long night shirt or something, and that's all he's wearing, so similarly, if he just sort of presses against it, that would suffice. Okay, now we're going to talk about the parallel situation for a woman. How does that work? So it says the Mechaber in Sif Dalet. Yesh mi she'omer she'hanoshim yecholos levarech u'lispalal kashem levushus hacholok. The women can also daven when they're wearing this cholok, this cloak, this nightshirt. Afal pi she'en mafsikas lamatzah me'alev. Even though there's no hefsek, there's no other barrier between the chest and the erva. Says the Ramah. V'im hein arumas, and if they are in a state of undress, tzorich shetei erva shalahen tuchis bekarka. Their erva, their private parts, needs to be tuchis bekarka, sort of sunken into the ground. Oshe yoshvus al shar davar, or they've got to be sitting on something where it's more hidden. Because in that situation, their lave is not going to be seeing the erva because they're sitting down, and therefore the erva is more concealed. Masha'en came be'ish, because for an ish the erva is protruding, and therefore it's more of a problem for libo roes erva. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot Tesvav, Yecholus levarich. Women can make the bracha hatam. The ervosan lemata moed, because their erva is concealed, is more hidden. And the heart is not going to be able to see the erva. If they're standing in a state of undress, there's a separate problem. Aside from libo roes erva, there's a separate problem. There's just an exposure of the erva. Aside from the libo roes erva problem, and So therefore, how does she overcome that problem? She sits down, because through her sitting, her lower private parts are sort of covered, and therefore her erva is not exposed. And when the Ramah adds that therefore the lave is not going to see the erva, lav dafka libon. It doesn't mean the lave is not going to see it. The libon belav hachi en roya ervason, because in any event the lave is not going to see the erva of a woman. What it means is that her erva is not exposed totally. And therefore it's a tar sofa, and therefore their erva is not seen. Not the ein libo roisa erva, but the erva is not seen. So that way you overcome the second problem. Okay, mehalev. So this is going still on the words of the Mechaba, that if they're wearing this cholok, if a woman is wearing this nightshirt, she'ein mafsikas l'matza mehalev, she needs to sit down. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Sifkot Tezayin, v'habach choylek. The Bach argues with this, or svirelei, to gam be'isha bo'inon hafsoka bein leiv le'erva. That it's not good enough for her just to sit down. That just like a man needs a hefsek between the leiv and the erva, afidu kashiyesh la malbush, even if he's wearing like some sort of malbush, a nightshirt or something. Avashar achronim hiskimu lifsak hashulchan aruch. But many agree with the psak of the Shulchan Aruch, and therefore a woman who's wearing just a nightshirt, if she's sitting down, then she'll be able to make a bracha, say krishma, whatever it is. V'ayim b'yeredeh siman reish the maski hataz v'ashachshom. That if you must posek hashulchan aruch pai, like whatever just like the Shulchan Aruch paskins here, the ein shaykh be'isha liber roesa erva. It's not shaykh for a woman to have the concern of liber roesa erva, because again the erva is hidden away. Muteres levarich birchas hatavila kashiyamedes b'toich hamayim afshi hi adayin aruma. She's allowed to make the bracha of tefillah even when she's aruma. The mishum guli erva ein bazeh. Because there's no problem of Gili Erva. Why not? There's two issues. There's Liber Roisa Erva, well, we said there's not a problem. Because according to the Mechaba, it's concealed, it's not a problem. There's a problem of exposure of her Erva, that's not a problem. Because the water is considered a barrier, and therefore for her to make a bracha in the mikvah, when she's not in a state of dress at all, she hasn't got any clothes on, then that would be okay. The Yoisa Tov, however, it's better, says the Mishnah Berurah, if her chest is above the water, then you've got a benefit, because then the water is going to be a hefsek between the lave and the erva. Or alternatively, and I think this would be the normal. This is the practice of most Ashkenazi women. I think the Sephardi women, they make a bracha like in a dressing gown before they go into the mikvah. They'd be just sort of dressed in a dressing gown. That's when they would make the bracha for the mikvah. But the Ashkenazi women, this is the preference. They would stand in the water itself, and you don't really even need to cover her chest, because like we said, if the lave is above the water level, and then that's the barrier between liberos erva and the other concern of the exposure of the erva, that's not a problem. Oi, says the Mishnah Berurah, that she goes into the mikveh and she just sort of folds her arms against herself, and that's a hefsek between the lave and the erva. Okay, if she sort of, imagine, we're not talking about a very fancy mikveh, which is like a spa or something, which is more like a bath, but rather we're talking about a river or something like that, or the water is a little bit dirty. It's like a there's the earth on the floor. If she agitates the water, then it's sort of the dust and the earth will cover the water, and therefore the evarim will not be seen. That would work according to everybody. Okay, let's carry on. If, however, there is a communal mikvah and there are other women who are naked in the mikvah, when she makes the bracha, she should turn away from any other woman who is undressed. Even if you're going to tell me that I'm in the mikvah itself, the woman's in the mikvah itself, and therefore that's a separate rishus, and therefore she can make another bracha. It doesn't make a difference if there are other women there. No, that's not true. And therefore she should look away and not face any other woman who happens to be undressed. Tuches. Now this is going on the Ramah, that the Ramah says it's not good enough for her to just stand. She should actually sit on the ground to make sure that the erva is sort of hidden away. Sort of pressed against the ground. Because for a man this is not going to help. Because the Avarim, the Beitzim, Vahagid, Bolton, they're projected out, so therefore sitting on the ground is not going to be of any benefit. I'm Morgan Avram Lakaman, Simon Reish Vav, the Daita after Ha'agavos Nirin Ein Lahakpid. That even if the Agavos, the back side is exposed, that's not a problem. Nirin Ein Lahakpid. The Agavos Ein Bohem Mishum Erva. Because Agavos have not got a status of Erva. V'chein Nashman Ksas M'bi Agraba El Yerabba Pasuk. The Agavos Yesh Ba Mishum Erva. The Yerabba have a Paskins. The Agavos do have a din of Erva. Okay. Says the Mechaba. Shar Evarov Royim Eso Erva Muta. That so far we're talking about Liberes Erva and the Einayim. But other parts of the body, which see other limbs, see the erva, that's not a problem. Avalim aids avar of nogeya, but if they're actually touching the erva, being the ervas chavero, whether it's his own erva or the ervas chavero, then there's a problem. Also, likras krishma or hispalel, you can't say krishma or daven. V'yarcheisov and your thighs, she'erva shecheves aleihen, where the erva is touching them. Tzorich lafsikon bebeged, you have to sort of separate the erva from the other limbs of the body, from your thigh, with the beged. Oila harchikon, or to distance them be'inyan shelo yiga hagid bohem, that the gid is not touching the thighs, in order that you can daven or say kriyashma. Says the Mishnah Berurah Royin. So we said, the Mechaba said that the other Evarim, whatever it may be, a hand or whatever it may be, that's not a problem. Other Evarim seeing the Evar is not a problem. So when it comes to seeing, no problem. Other Evarim touching the erva is a problem. Why? A gzeira that you might touch with your hand. And touch with your hand is a problem of hirur, and you won't be able to say krishma or to daven or whatever. Hagid bohem. So this is going on the end of the Mechaba, where we said, Sorich lahafsik bebeged larchikan shelo yiga hagid bohem, aval benegiyah the kiss ein lahakvit. The kiss, which means the sack where the beitzim are in, if they're touched the other Evarim, that's not a problem. We're more worried about the gid itself. There are those who are particular about that as well. Because there are those who argue and say that the touching of the touching of the kiss to the Evarim, the sack, is also a problem. And the Maisa, even if the gid is touching the Yerechim, the thighs, that would be that would be okay, Prima Godim, etc., etc. Okay, Sif Kotzen Vov, Sif Vov, let's finish off the Simon. Says the Mechaba Sif Vov, Hoysa Talisa Chagura al Mosnov. If a person is wearing a talis, some sort of blanket or clothing, chagura al mosnov, and it's tied, you've got to imagine a belt of a dressing gown or something like that. Even though he's exposed from the chest upwards, from the belt upwards, he's allowed to say krishma, but he can't daven until he's covered his chest. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a guy's just wearing swimming trunks. So, or he's just wearing, just wearing swimming trunks. So then it's Shabbos morning. He's just wearing these, sort of pajama bottoms or something like that, and he washes negavasa, and then he says, "Boy, I haven't said kriyashma." So you're allowed to say kriyashma in that situation, but not to damash ben esrei. Yeah, or you're sitting by the pool and you think, oh my gosh, it's Seisan Krishma, I better get on with it. To say Krishma, just wearing swimming trunks is okay, but not Samash Ben Esra. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Mimosna v'lemata, Rotzolema, Afidu rak ad lemata me'ervosoi, the bezel dai medina lik Krishma, aval tefillah tzorach shemechusa kol gufay. But when you're davening, then you need to cover your whole body. Afapi, This is not ideal. Yeah, this is not ideal. Just as some, just in the swimming trunks, just to make a bracha is not ideal, and certainly not Kriya Shema, which is Kabbalah or Malchus Shemaim. However, mutalik Kris, given Shervasa Mechusa, because at the end of the day, the erva is covered. The Gamatalis Mafsik Bein Libo Le'erva, and you've got some sort of barrier between the lave and the erva, which would be the elastic of the swimming trunks or whatever that may be. However, Liboy, who had in Kol Gufay, says Nishbur Siv Kotzen Kraftalid, who had in Kol Gufay, the one is not just the lave for Shemona Esra, for other tefillah, not just the lave needs to be covered, but the whole body. The Nochat Liboy, the ratio, because it's talking about the ratio, where the ratio, when it comes to Krishma, the lave is not seeing the erva because he's wearing swimming trunks or something like that. Now, what's the chila between Krishma and tefillah? To be Krishma, ein tzorech l'chasas liboy, you don't need to cover the lave. The v'tama tefillah chamor, and the reason why tefillah is more chamor, the fish of tefillah tzorech liros es atzma ka'omer lifnei ha-melech. When you're davening Shemona Esra, you're davening stam, you've got to see yourself as if you're standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shetzorech lamed be'ema, you've got to stand with a certain fear, a certain reverence. You're not being medaber, you're not speaking to a melech, and therefore there's a lower guard, there's a lower level, and just so long as you're wearing the swimming trunks, that would be okay. All right, Peseda, we'll leave it at that.